Top 12 important phrasal verbs and collocations you need to know. The meaning of under the weather is to feel ill or unwell. For example, I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, so I'm going to stay in bed. This is an idiom that comes from the nautical origin of being seasick or affected by bad weather. Some synonyms for under the weather are sick, ill, unhealthy, indisposed, or off color. The opposite of under the weather is to feel fine or well. For example, I'm feeling much better today, thank you. I'm no longer under the weather.
Oh, he's fine. Bit under the weather. Oh, he's fine. Bit under the weather.
Now, as well as Mr. Sloman being off today, I'm afraid Ash is feeling a little bit under the weather. Now, as well as Mr. Sloman being off today, I'm afraid Ash is feeling a little bit under the weather.
Good. Now, I can see you're feeling somewhat under the weather. Good. Now, I can see you're feeling somewhat under the weather.
The meaning of to hang up can vary depending on the context and the tone of the speaker. It could mean to end or disconnect a phone call or a video call by pressing a button or closing an app. For example, she hung up on me before I could say goodbye. This is a verb phrase that comes from the literal sense of hanging up a phone receiver on a hook. To delay or postpone something until a later time or date. For example, we'll have to hang up our plans until the pandemic is over. This is a verb phrase that comes from the figurative sense of hanging up something on a hanger or a hook. To stop or quit doing something, especially a hobby or a profession. For example, he decided to hang up his guitar and focus on his studies. This is a verb phrase that comes from the metaphorical sense of hanging up something on a wall or a shelf.
You should hang up the phone. You should hang up the phone.
Hang up the phone, Helen, right now. Hang up the phone, Helen, right now.
It's time for him to hang up his sword, and it's time for him to hang up his sword. And
the meaning of to count on someone is to rely or depend on someone to do something or to help in a difficult situation. For example, you can count on me to finish the project on time. This is an idiom that comes from the literal sense of counting or calculating something with certainty. Some synonyms for to count on someone are trust, have faith in, lean on, or fall back on.
Don't you think that you can count on me? Don't you think that you can count on me?
You can count on me, sir.
Cool.
You can count on me, sir.
Cool.
Can I count on you when the time comes? Can I count on you when the time comes?
The meaning of to make friends is to form or develop a friendly or close relationship with someone or a group of people. For example, she made a lot of friends when she joined the club. This is an idiom that comes from the literal sense of making or creating something. Some synonyms for to make friends are befriend, bond with, get along with, or connect with.
Make friends with someone. Make friends with someone.
But you cannot make friends with the rock stars. But you cannot make friends with the rock stars.
We're not here to make friends. We're not here to make friends.
Something is broken or not working properly, and cannot be used until it is fixed. For example, the elevator is out of order, so we have to take the stairs. This is a phrase that comes from the literal sense of being out of the normal or correct order or sequence.
Think it's out of order. Think it's out of order.
Maybe that phone is out of order. Maybe that phone is out of order.
I'm sorry, but my answering machine is out of order. I'm sorry, but my answering machine is out of order.
To reach or arrive at a place or a destination. For example, how long does it take to get to the airport? This is a verb phrase that comes from the literal sense of getting or obtaining something. To have or receive an opportunity or a chance to do something. For example, I finally got to meet my favorite singer. This is a verb phrase that comes from the figurative sense of getting or acquiring something. To annoy or bother someone by doing or saying something that makes them angry or upset. For example, don't let him get to you. He's just trying to make you lose your temper. This is a verb phrase that comes from the slang sense of getting or affecting someone.
Anybody get to you yet? Anybody get to you yet?
I hope I get to meet him sometime. I hope I get to meet him sometime.
I'm trying to get to the airport! I'm trying to get to the airport!
The meaning of few and far between is that something is rare, scarce, or infrequent. For example, good movies are few and far between these days. This is an idiom that comes from the literal sense of being far apart in distance or time. Some synonyms for few and far between are sparse, sporadic, occasional, or isolated. The opposite of few and far between is to be plentiful, abundant, or frequent.
But those days are few and far between. But those days are few and far between.
All I'm saying is that the really good guys are few and far between. All I'm saying is that the really good guys are few and far between.
The really great things are sort of few and far between. The really great things are sort of few and far between.
To examine or inspect something carefully or thoroughly. For example, I need to look over your report before I submit it to the manager. This is a verb phrase that comes from the literal sense of looking or seeing something. To watch or supervise someone or something from a higher position or a distance. For example, she looked over the children as they played in the park. This is a verb phrase that comes from the literal sense of looking or seeing something from above or afar. To ignore or disregard someone or something, especially in a rude or unfair way. For example, he looked over me when he was handing out the awards. He didn't even acknowledge my contribution. This is a verb phrase that comes from the figurative sense of looking or seeing past someone or something.
Please look over your course outlines. Please look over your course outlines.
Mr. Kowalski, good morning. I looked over your paperwork and I think we should immediately start a full battery of tests. Mr. Kowalski, good morning. I looked over your paperwork and I think we should immediately start a full battery of tests.
Look over here, guys. Look over here, guys.
The meaning of to have time off is to take or enjoy a period of time when one does not have to work or study, and can relax or do other things. For example, I'm having some time off next week. I'm going to visit my family. This is an idiom that comes from the literal sense of having or possessing time. Some synonyms for to have time off are vacation, holiday, break, or leave.
What happens when people have time off work? What happens when people have time off work?
Need to have some time off. Enjoy your first Christmas in Brookfield. Need to have some time off. Enjoy your first Christmas in Brookfield.
So you had time off and then your friend told you to come. Okay. So you had time off and then your friend told you to come. Okay.
To continue or proceed with something that is already happening or planned. For example, the show must go on, even if there are technical difficulties. This is a verb phrase that comes from the literal sense of going or moving forward. To happen or occur, especially in an unexpected or surprising way. For example, what's going on here? Why are there so many police cars? This is a verb phrase that comes from the figurative sense of going or taking place. To talk or complain for a long time, usually in a boring or annoying way. For example, he went on and on about his problems. I couldn't get a word in. This is a verb phrase that comes from the literal sense of going or extending in length.
What's going on with you? What's going on with you?
Life goes on, Indy. Life goes on, Indy. The show goes on. The show goes on.
To extinguish or stop a fire or a light from burning or shining. For example, he put out the candle before going to bed. This is a verb phrase that comes from the literal sense of putting or placing something out of sight or reach. To produce or publish something, such as a book, a magazine, a movie, or a song. For example, she put out a new album last week. This is a verb phrase that comes from the figurative sense of putting or offering something to the public or the market. To injure or hurt someone, especially by dislocating a joint or a bone. For example, he put out his shoulder when he fell off his bike. This is a verb phrase that comes from the literal sense of putting or moving something out of its normal position or alignment. To annoy or irritate someone, usually by causing them inconvenience or trouble. For example, I don't want to put you out, but can I borrow your car for a day?
God, I hope it. I hope this didn't put you out. God, I hope it. I hope this didn't put you out.
I put out the fire. I put out the fire.
Warren, I'd like you to put out a press release. Warren, I'd like you to put out a press release.
The phrase all of a sudden means suddenly or without warning. It is used to describe something that happens quickly and unexpectedly. For example, you can say all of a sudden, the lights went out, or she felt dizzy all of a sudden. The phrase is often followed by a comma or a dash. The origin of the phrase is not clear, but it may have been influenced by the Latin expression subito, which means suddenly or immediately.
You can't all of a sudden be my best friend just because you had a bad day. You can't all of a sudden be my best friend just because you had a bad day.
Why is everything all tangled up all of a sudden? Why is everything all tangled up all of a sudden?
All of a sudden, all that stands between you and being dead is you. All of a sudden, all that stands between you and being dead is you.